Okay, number 15, the definition, page 139. Some of you have written it down already. What does it say in your book? Again, you don't need the teacher to learn. It's right here. Whoops. Right here. Good job, everyone. Vivi? Okay. Thank you. Okay, everybody got that written down? So it should be the element of art that describes the darkness or lightness of the color. So if you have a path, it is what we'd call that's really pretty much red, right? We call that a hue. What do we call this? Well, we call it pink, yes. But yes, you're right, it is a tint. It's a light color of red, right? So, there are two basic categories of value. And if you turn the page, you'll see a whole chart full of values. In the middle, you have the hue. To the left, you have the tints. And to the right, you have the shades, right? So we're going to have two categories in your notes. So the first category would be tints. So we'll just write tint. Other category is going to be shade. Okay, so the definition of the tint is just the light value of a hue. And the shade, as we know, is what? Dark value. Very good. Okay, so how do we change the value of a color? How do you think you make a color lighter? How do you make a tint? You add white, right? Likewise, if you wanted to take red and make it darker, what would you add?
Black.
Yes. Okay, now what we always need to think about after we know the facts, we know the definition, we know how to make a tint, we know how to make a shade, what do they say? Okay, so we want to know what tints communicate. Communicate. Or say, you could say. The world is all about communication these days. So we're going to use that word. It always has been, but and then what is shades? What do shades communicate? So does anybody, without looking at anything, you think about something? What's another name for a tint? Does anybody know a color that's a tint? Has anybody ever heard the word pastels?
Yes.
Okay, pastels are what? They're lighter colors. Basically, a pastel and a tint are the same thing if we're talking about colors. Pastel colors. Now, there are also pastels that are like chalk. That's not what we're talking about here. So who's wearing a pastel today? Okay, yes, you would definitely be wearing a pastel. Anybody else? Okay, who's wearing a shade? You might be wearing a hue. Okay, because yours looks pretty pure. It looks pretty pure purple. Does anyone have one that looks kind of like it's got a little black added to it? Okay, you've got the blue with the black, so that navy blue. Yours is kind of a hue. I think yours would be a shade. Could have a little black, a little white in it. Okay, so if you have a darker color, it's generally going to be a shade, a lighter color. So look at the two examples in your book. What mostly has the artist used here? Tints or shades? Tints, okay, so it's very light. And then here, shades, okay, so you have a very dark painting here. So talk about the mood, the feeling, etc. in this one. What would be some words that we could use? Look in your book because you'll see it better than you do see it on the screen. Page 140. Everybody look. Give me some words.
Bright and cheery.
Cheery.
Bright sunny day.
Bright. What did you say? Sunny, you could say. Is it? I always like to think about how paintings sound. Is this quiet or loud? Yeah, it's quiet. Peaceful or chaotic?
Peaceful.
Okay. Soft or harsh? Okay. We kind of said cheery, so is it strong or is it more delicate? Yep. Innocent or evil? Yeah. Okay, we got a lot of words there. And it's not going to be just the color that determines this, but that does, or the tint. But that's part of the communication, is what kind of color they use. So that's what we're going to be studying for the rest of the week, is different ways you vary color so they communicate different messages. Okay, on the other hand, then, usually the shade is going to be the dark, is going to be the opposite.
Can you move the sheet up a little bit?
Yes. How's that?
Good, thank you.
Okay, thanks for asking. Anytime, tell me anytime, because when I'm thinking about what I'm going to say, I don't tend to look at the screen as much as I should. Okay, what would be some things that it would communicate?
Dark.
Okay, dark. I didn't hear that. What was it?
Mysterious.
Mysterious. Good. What else?
Gloomy.
Gloomy. Despair. Getting depressed. What else? Look at your words here and see if you can find an opposite. Angry could be. What was the another one?
Depressed.
Depressed. What else?
Nighttime.
What?
Nighttime.
Nighttime. Okay. And that would be kind of dark, so I think we're not going to repeat that. Okay.
Helplessness.
What?
Helplessness.
Helplessness. Good. Somebody whistling, or is that just me hearing voices? Yeah. Could you hold off on that? All right. How about harsh or soft?
Harsh.
Yeah. Innocent or evil?
Evil.
Could be evil. Now this won't always be the truth, but those are just some possibilities. It's going to depend on a lot of things. It's going to depend on the shape. It's going to depend on the line, the type of line used. It's going to depend on the texture. It's going to depend on a lot of things and what it communicates. These are some general things that it might communicate. Okay? All right. Now, number 16. And you might want to write down some directions here. You don't have to copy these into your book. But I'm going to change it a little bit from the handout. I wasn't paying close enough attention when I assigned this. Okay, so what you need to do for number 16 is you're going to make a value scale. Yeah. Move it down a lot. You're going to make a value scale. So you're going to using one color. And a minimum of 8 values. Okay? So that's the main assignment. Okay, requirements or rules, or I don't know what I want to call them. Requirements. I want you to use acrylic paint. Acrylic or tempera, I guess. You can use tempera if you want to. All right. Here's number 1 rule. Number 2 is for your tint. This is really important so you don't use tons of paint. Start with white. Okay? And then add your hue or color. Hue is just another word for a pure color. Okay? In small amounts. So you probably cannot see this very well. Maybe this. So when you start out, can you see the value scale change there? This is kind of a peach color. Here was my hue right here. All right, so when I started with white and added this hue to the white, but just a tiny little bit. And then I painted a sample, and then I added a little bit more and painted a sample, and then I added a little bit more and painted a sample until you get to here. Then what this is up here is where I start adding black, and you probably can't see that very well on the screen. I wish I could get color on here better, but I just can't. So this is red plus black. It turns kind of a brown. Maybe. Here's a bigger scale. You see the differences? No, you can't. And I can see it on my. This is why I think I should have a TV screen instead of the projector. Does that change it at all? Nope.
Try adding light.
So you can see the changes in the tints, but you can't really. There you can see a little bit, but then the other ones disappear. So anyway, that's for now. That's as good as it's going to get. All right. So for the tint, where was I writing this? Okay. So now the shade is just the opposite. So for the shade, you're going to start with the hue, and then add the color. Then add black, I'm sorry. Then add black. Just little bits of black at a time because it will turn black so fast you won't believe it. Okay, the other thing I want you to do when you do this is I want you to paint, do not leave space between your values. What do I mean by that? You want to paint them. I'm trying to find, I don't have an example where there's not space between them. You want to paint them right up next to each other so you can see if there's a shift. If there's not a shift if there's not a change in the values, here you can see it. Oh, the green works so much better than the red. That's what I should have shown you. Okay, you should clearly be able to see a change in the value scale. This you can't see. That's more red, and the red just doesn't show up. But notice I didn't leave any white in between them. It's harder to see the difference if you leave white in between. So don't do that. Okay. Then when you're done, now I would highly recommend you not take the shortcut. A lot of people think, well, I want to get this done, so I'm just going to do it directly in my book. It's going to be far better if you do it outside your book, and then after it dries, you can cut these out and collage them together. And I think in your handout it says that you have to do your symbol, but you do not. I don't know. I need to go back over and sit down and read through that entire handout so I can make the changes I need. Someday. I don't have time. Okay, so I could do a series of triangles, for example, and collage them. I could make an abstract composition or something on my page. Don't do it directly in your book. That is a recipe for disaster because you may not get a variation. Let me show you a 3 value scale. Okay, they did it correctly here. They wrote value. I changed the number. It used to be 18. So they had the number. They labeled it. It's neat. They have their 8 values. So that would be a 3. How do you get a 4? How do you get a 4? You do things more creatively. Okay? The value scale, here were her different values. She cut those circles out. And now she used a different color here to kind of frame it with a leaf. That's a 4. Okay? That's very creative. It's neatly done. It's numbered. Ooh, she didn't label it. Not a 4. She probably, yeah, I know, because it used to be 18. I'm always kind of changing the assignments. See how I put 16 over here? It's 16 now. All right. Let me show you real quickly, just a little quick. I'm not going to spend much time doing this. Little quick painting demo, just to remind you, if you haven't done it, we do it on a magazine. You need water. You need a palette knife. You need a rag. And my palette knife, oh, it got clean. I left it, the paint dry on it. So you get, oh, somebody took my white. I don't have any white. Sorry about that. You take some whites. And we're not painting very much. This paint is very thick, so you don't need a whole lot of it.
I found your white.
Oh, was it sitting out?
It was sitting on my table.
Ah! Wouldn't you know? Okay, that's plenty of white. Notice when I'm cleaning off my palette or even my brush, what I'll do is I'll use the magazine to get most of the paint off, and then I put it in my water, saving me a lot of changing of my water. Your water's going to get dirty a lot faster if you don't do that. All right, so I'm just going to take just a little tiny bit of the pink, put it down on my magazine, and then I've actually wiped it off of here. And you can mix that in. You don't have to mix it in all of the white to get just a really light value where it's almost white. That would be my first value. I would go ahead and paint it. Where's the piece of paper? Let's do it right here. Go ahead and paint it. There's value number 1. You guys see what I'm doing? And then I'd add a little bit more pink. You might want to clean off your palette knife in between. I'm going to take shortcuts here so you can have more time to work. Add a little more pink. I'm doing a tiny one. And just get it darker and darker. I shouldn't, okay, I learned my lesson today. I should be demonstrating with green or blue, right? Probably green. Seems to like the green. So how many of these do you need? How many values? 8, yes. One of the values will be the hue, the pure color all by itself. You'll probably have more tints than you will shades. So when you get to doing the shades, don't add the shades to the colors that have the white in them. Add it directly to the hue. All right. Any questions? Okie dokie. I will come around and be checking your book.